Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Purple Smurf 13. Welcome to There Will Be Ink. Now broadcasting on Wednesdays at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. Tonight, our guest is Brian Shearer, the artist and creator of Gunship Thunderpunch. Our topic is going to be underrated robots. And in the show, we're looking at some clips from right now. Brian, I don't know if you know this show, but I just discovered this show earlier this year. And it's got the original of so many great things. It's got the original of, Ravage from the Transformers here with Clint, the Robot Panther. It's got the original of the Hiss tank from G.I. Joe. Look at this. And even Nightbird, Nightbird from the Transformers, her design looks exactly like the main robot from this show. It's called Gordion from 1979. So yeah, I love old giant robot shows from the 70s. I was a kid lucky enough to grow up with Grandizer, Guy King, Star Avengers, all the Force Fives, and those shows still inspire me to this very, very day. So I'm excited that we have new giant robot shows to talk about, new giant robot stories to tell, and I'm even working on one myself. But before we get into all that, I want to point out that 2021 is the year. If you're interested in getting into indie comics, making a dream come true, building a world, building your own universe of stories, this is the time. There's never been anything like what we have now. We have Twitter, we have YouTube to do promo, we have high quality small batch printing, we have an incredible network of creative people you can connect with, artists, writers, cover artists, variant cover artists. I don't know, everything you need is right at your fingertips if you just get to the work. So this is the year to build your dream. Don't wait another year. My own project is called Tales of Zero. It's live on Indiegogo now. Check it out. It's a kind of a Lovecraftian mix of Indiana Jones and aliens. But on this show, I like to talk about other people's projects and kind of open up the digital campfire. We can all just sit around it, work on a drawing, talk about creative process, and you never know who will stop by. We usually have interesting guests in the chat and people just dropping in. So that's it. There will be ink. Tonight, like I said, our topic is underrated robots. I've already chosen my subject. My subject is Rydeen, the amazing Rydeen. I always like to comment on this little scene from Gordion where he whips all these guys with his laser whip and then throws them a box of Band-Aids. And then when they get the box of Band-Aids, watch this, they thank him. They're like, thank you for the Band-Aids. And I think there's a lesson here to be learned about creators in the indie comics world who are doing better than you, who have bigger projects than you. It's like when someone's doing better than you, let that motivate you and learn from them. People crying that their campaign isn't as big as so-and-so's or their success isn't as big as so-and-so, it's just such a waste of time. We live in a world with so many great role models we can learn from. So that's what I'm doing here. Our show is kind of a no bashing, no trashing. We just promote what we like. And I love giant robots. So Brian, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be
no
here.
Problem.
I've never seen that cartoon before. How have I never seen that?
I never heard of it till about 6 months ago, and I fell into a big rabbit hole of just being obsessed with it. The character designs, the explosions, the way buildings are rendered, the way fight scenes are rendered, it's exactly like G.I. Joe, exactly like the Transformers, like Toei Animation and Sunrise, who did that. It's like all the same art team. So you watch it and you're like, oh my God, that's exactly the way something explodes. That's exactly the way an airplane blows up, And then they have these designs like for hover bikes and tanks. And you see this tank and it's got tank tracks and a turret on the back and like a hatch canopy. And you're like, that's the Hiss tank. That's, like a couple iterations before the Hiss tank.
Yeah.
So It's a really fun show. And then Gordion, the main robot, has like a robot inside a robot inside a robot. And the biggest one looks just like Nightbird. As soon as I saw it, I was like, it's Nightbird from Transformers. And then Clint, the Robot Panther, I'm like, it's Ravage. I was just like, I can't believe I'm seeing this earlier iteration of so many of those visual motifs,
Where is this? Is this streaming somewhere or is it on YouTube?
Yeah, I found it on Bandai, the Japanese toy company. They have a YouTube channel. And when they try to sell the toy, they make episodes of the show available. So if you look on their YouTube channel, it's called Bandai Spirits. Okay. That's where I first found it. And it's awesome. The first episode is so great. The main character there, he's like, he's kind of like cocky and self-assured. And then he kind of gets into this situation bigger than he's ready for. He has to fit in with this organized group. But then, of course, it's his destiny to pilot the robot. Stop me if you've heard this one before. But, it's great. It's great. And the supporting cast and the character designs are just so amazing. There's this one girl. Her name is Rosette. And she looks like a girl in 1996.
Huh.
I don't know how they did that. They put a girl in a show in 1979 who looks like she's living in 1996. The hair, the way she's dressed, it's amazing. I'm like, how did they? But it it's amazing. It's a really fun and great show.
It looks like that bike thing had a serious Mazinger Z vibe with the little shuttle that goes in his head.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you ever watched Raideen either, but Raideen, the main character there, he also has a jet bike that's all red and white, and he uses it to pilot himself into the robot. So yeah, they're all drinking from the same well at that time. Yeah. But here also, I'm going to see, before we get into looking at your book, I'm going to show you my pencils. So this is my picture of Raideen. I posted the real, I don't even know if you can see it. Okay. Actually, it came out pretty good. So you see, that's just all pencil. And Raideen, like Mazinger, was, one of the Shogun warriors. So, American kids were buying the Raideen and Mazinger toys in 1977 and 1978, but the Transor Z cartoon wouldn't come until 84,
Yeah.
So it's like, that stuff was so confusing, I think, for kids. They're like, what is this toy called,
Yeah. Well, we were watching, anime, but we didn't know what it was. We were just like,
exactly. Exactly. I mean, my generation, and we're probably similar age, I would just rush home to see Transor Z, in 1984. I thought it was so futuristic, and turns out it was 12 years old.
Yeah.
When we were watching it.
Yeah. I think the first anime I saw that was Star Blazers. So
me too.
4, I guess.
Yeah, same here.
But that came out or was made before Star Wars.
Yeah, I think 74 at first. Yeah. And then the second iteration was 78. Yeah, I'm a huge Star Blazers fan. Same thing. See, I was living in Germany in those times, and the Armed Forces Network played Star Blazers, Grandizer. So yeah, my brother and I, we watched all those shows. We didn't know what we were watching. We didn't know it was anime. It just blew our minds, and we loved it,
Yeah.
So yeah, I have actually just a month or two ago, I bought myself a present, an original cell from the animation of Star Blazers.
Oh wow, I would love to have that.
And I framed it, and I just was like, oh my god, this made me so happy.
Yeah, that's there's a few animation cells I'd like to have. I've got a couple from He-Man. And,
oh great.
I would love to have a G.I. Joe and Transformers, but I bought my He-Man stuff at San Diego, and they didn't have any. They had some really rough Transformer. They must have been like preliminary before they actually did the sale. And it's like, they just weren't impressive. I want the color. I want the whole thing.
Oh yeah, you want the whole thing. Yeah, you're right. Collectors might have snapped those up, but it's funny what is available though. You can scrounge, and I mean, I've scrounged some cells from, again, if you're into the lesser known giant robot shows like I am. I'm every now and then I'm like, I know what that is. Yeah. I don't think this seller knows what that is. I'm going to grab that.
It's good to be into things that most people aren't.
Exactly.
I'll take all the stuff. Thank you.
I'll take the obscure topic, Alex. All right. So Jim, are you going to draw a robot with us? You got to, Jim.
I absolutely hate robots.
All right. You hate robots. No. Oh my gosh, Jim! What are we going to do with you?
No, I was really never into the mech stuff. I don't hate it. I was never really into it growing up. So I'm totally lost. But
this is good because
that Robot Jocks show or movie.
All right.
Like in the 80s.
Yeah, of course.
I vaguely remember that.
We'll draw one of those.
Like they had to soup up the humans to put them in the robots.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, I like that. That's another theme, like with Raideen and with a few of the others, where even Evangelion had it too. In Raideen, it was like it took a toll on him to work the robot. There was like a price. He had this power and he had this destiny, but it also like wrecked him. And another show that had that same quality was called Ideon, Space Runaway Ideon, which was made by the same guy who did Evangelion later. And it is kind of fun, the tragedy, mixing tragedy with fantastic power fantasies, Like, I mean, the final
That
episode.
whole concept is basically like the life of a Japanese artist.
Yeah,
They work them to death.
Totally. Yeah,
Those poor guys.
totally. Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, you live the fantasy. You create these giant robot monsters and you make them fight. Yeah, about that. But did you ever see? Because I don't think it ever aired in the States. But do you ever see that the final episode of the first cycle of Mazinger Z where he loses? It's the most shocking thing. It's on YouTube. You can see it. But in the first cycle,
at some point, but
yeah, he actually loses, and it's brutal. Because you always used to him eventually turning the tables on the enemy robot and winning, right? Every time, like 32 times in the season. So in the last episode of the first cycle, he loses. And so you just see, Tranzor Z or Mazinger Z just get devastated. And you see Koji get wounded and he can't work the controls. And it's just brutal. The season ends with him being completely defeated. Oh. and you watch it and it's just like it has that true kind of tragic tone where like they're all sitting back and like, how can this be? And there it goes. It really is amazing. I would roll the clip right now, but we got other things to talk about. But I guess the mixture of tragedy and kind of lyricism, I always love that in all the great robot shows. There was a wistfulness too, it wasn't always like perfect. People had their tragic backstories and a sense of loss.
Yeah, that's a little too in depth for 1980 mid 80s American audiences.
Yeah, no, they did. They skipped over that. Do you remember how in Tranzor Z, like all of a sudden he had a backpack with wings, and there was like no explanation where he got that? Yeah. That's because like the second series, Great Mazinger, he got that backpack, but in America they just mixed it into one show, so it was like, oh, he can fly now. Oh, guess that's cool.
Yeah, we just accepted it. We're just like,
we just said, he's got a cool backpack now. He's flying around. That's cool. All right. So anyway, let's talk about you. We're probably in the same rough generation, but what were your inspirations, both drawing and then maybe writing? Are you the writer of Gunship Thunderpunch?
Yeah.
So you don't even... Awesome. Yeah. So talk about your childhood inspirations and those that translated to your adult aspirations.
Well, I mean, I was an 80s kid, so I have, like I said, I was watching if it was on TV, I would watch it. And I got into Transformers, and I was a huge Transformers fan. And then G.I. Joe, those were probably my two favorite. But I mean, I was anything robot I loved. I remember watching Mighty Orbots, and
oh yeah, me too.
And along with stuff like Super Friends and all that. But
yep.
So all that in there's a whole bunch of stuff in the blender, being mixed around. And so that's kind of when I am doing like Thunderpunch. It's kind of my love letter to 1980s. So it's got a very my robots, when I draw them, I tend to not go too crazy with detail because I kind of like a retro kind of feel.
Oh yeah.
So and then like Tranzor Z and all that stuff. Was an influence. I loved. I think it must have been around third or fourth grade when that was out.
Yeah, me too.
I loved it. So that's always kind of been in the back of my head, and a huge influence.
But you ended up, drawing G.I. Joe and Transformers for IDW, and not every kid who grows up loving Tranzor Z and Transformers arrives at the position where they're drawing those characters for a publisher. So talk about that, how your childhood love of robots, which is a lot of us in the 80s, how did that get you to actually being the published illustrator that you are,
Well, it's one of those things where I didn't intentionally set out and go, oh, my life's goal is to draw these characters. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Who does that?
Right.
So it just so happened that when I was trying to break into comics. My first job was for IDW was a Doctor Who miniseries. So I did a Doctor Who 4-issue miniseries with them, and then there was it must have been around 2000. I did that around 2011 or so, and then they asked me to ink a G.I. Joe issue. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was I remember the only reason I remember when that was is because I was when my son was born, I was in the delivery room working on a page. So so because I had a deadline, and when you have a kid, a deadline is suddenly becomes more important. So they gave me that, and then I think I did. No, I didn't. That didn't work for several months, which was a bit stressful. And then Transformers, they just like, hey, can you ink this Transformers thing? And I was like, oh, sure, okay. So then all of a sudden, I was inking some Transformers stuff, and then the penciler on GI Joe liked my inks over him, so he kept trying to get me. It was one of those weird situations where I kept having to turn it down. They kept coming back and asking me to do it.
That's the way to be.
The penciler really liked
be in demand. That's what you want to be. You want to be in demand.
So once I started that, I got a little spoiled because I was on GI Joe for like 6 years, 7 years. I mean, and I'm still doing it from time to time when they ask. But I mean, it was like every month for 6
That's
years.
Great. That is great.
And so that kind of in there, I was doing some Transformer stuff here and there. But it's one of those situations where you just one day realize, wow, these were the two things I was the most into, and for some reason, these are the two things that I'm best known for as far as my work goes. So. But then we did so I was doing that, and we did a mini series, a $6 Million Man versus GI Joe, and it was the whole creative team came off of Real American Hero to do that. We thought for just that mini series, but in the meantime, they took the opportunity to mix things up, and all of a sudden, we didn't have a book anymore. So that happened right at the same time as all the crowdfunding stuff.
I see.
So, I had that's when I worked out, Thunderpunch, what I wanted to do. Cause they'd been talking about, possibility of canceling GI Joe at one point or putting it on hold. So I kind of knew down the road, once you start hearing that stuff, you're like, oh crap, what am I going to do? I've been spoiled for 6 years. So I started, that's when I started doubling down on like, okay, well, I got to do YouTube, and I got to make sure, I've got, I'm still out there. I'm not just begging for scraps from editors all the time.
Yep.
So, and then the book didn't get canceled, but then I still kept doing that stuff because I knew it was like, okay, I should probably keep doing that just in case. So that was kind of the start of the transition to doing my own stuff and not just working for companies. And then I guess it was 2018, 19 that Thunderpunch, the first Thunderpunch hit, and then here we are. And then 2020 was in there, which was a hot mess. But
but the whole crowdfunding ethos that we're involved in, it's gone through its own fits and starts. Whereas like the rising tide lifts all boats, and I think that crowdfunding is the place to be. It was in 2018. It was in 2017. It will be next year and the year after, so it was good that you were there then. I was there then too, as an onlooker. I've been watching this for, all the 4 years or so that it's been since late 2017, 2018, and, taking notes and just watching, who's who and what's happening. And it's been amazing to watch. I if you were, you and me are the same age, but I say this a lot because I'm older than some of my guests, but I was 11 in 1986. And there was an indie boom in 1986. And I remember it. That was my year when I was buying a lot of comics, and it was a black and white indie boom in response to the Turtles,
Yeah.
And so the Turtles broke, and then all of a sudden there was just a glut of new titles, new publishers that in black and white. And you know what? It was awesome. That's when Don Chin and, I was buying the Hamsters back then. And I think what we're seeing in the last 4 years, it's like that again.
Yeah.
It's like that again. So it's a super exciting time to be around creators and around new titles and new talent. So I'm super psyched to be a part of it.
I don't think younger people don't understand too. If you've grown up in the internet generation, especially if you're in your 20s, you wouldn't really know that just 20 years ago, it was impossible to do an indie book just about. You had to, because I tried to do one, the first one I ever did years and years ago, probably been the early 2000s. Diamond rejected it. And it was like, well, that killed the project, because where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go? Yep.
Plus, getting it printed was a nightmare. I mean, well, just money wise, it was really, really expensive. And to promote it, I mean, we had the internet, but 10 years before that, you couldn't do that. But even then, it was all at the time, your own website. Social media wasn't around. It was all message boards, and you could promote it, but not quite as, not that it's easy now, but the mechanisms are there now.
Right. The tools are present and accessible.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee of success, but there's nothing stopping anyone from grasping the tools. That's the thing. Now the tools are here. I mean, the Turtles, and that started off as just something they did on some Xeroxes and shopped around at cons in New England. So it's like that was it. The toolkit back then was like your local photocopy shop. That was their toolkit. And you're right. I mean, if it wasn't in diamond, it wasn't real, and that world existed until a few years ago. Where it's just like it wasn't real unless it was in diamond. But now it's kind of the looking glass. Now Marvel has walked away from diamond, and DC's walked away from diamond. So now it's almost not real unless it's here where we are. It's not real unless it's like, and that's the thing that I've really enjoyed watching the creators in this indie scene, is that like, you can talk to them. They're like on their show. Like, I want to ask you a question. I mean, you have live drawing streams all the time. I'm sometimes in your chat and I can just ask you things. I mean, that's the coolest thing, is that it's a 24/7, 7-day a week, 24-hour day kind of a comic book convention, if you want it to be. The people who are writing the book you're into, they're available. You can ask them questions. You can chat with them. I mean, that's something that didn't exist before.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it's really cool. That's something I'm trying to develop, is that, I mean, I'm nobody right now, but, eventually when, people have read my work and everything a little bit, sometime down the road, I'll be just as available then, It's like, this is the world we're living in. The world is big and the world is tiny, right? It depends how you look at it.
And it's you definitely have with all those, because everybody has access to the tools. There's a lot more noise. There's a lot. You got to be more creative, and it just takes time. It takes time to constantly be showing up every day, and do your live stream and go on Twitter and do all the stuff, even though, if it wasn't for all that, I'd probably never be on anything. But
I know.
You got to do it. And then, some people get really frustrated, and I get it. I mean, when I've been there, but one of the mistakes some of the younger people make, or newer people, however you want to, in some cases both, is they get really frustrated and they start getting public with their frustration.
I know.
And
that's
like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't make you look
do not do that.
bad.
Yep.
Just dust yourself off if you have a failed campaign. I mean, my first one failed.
I've had one too. I've had a campaign before this that no one knows about that failed. So I'm feeling real excited about where I'm standing now, because I know what it's like to have nothing. So I'm really grateful for where I'm standing right now.
So you got to build it up slowly, and don't take your frustrations out on the internet, and you just kind of figure out what didn't work, and then you get at it again. I mean, that's it's figuring out how to do the business thing, right? Like, if you were starting a car washing detailing business or something, and then the first go around you had a really bad year, you wouldn't start yelling at people on the street or telling everybody. It's like,
I hate your car.
Act like you're in business.
Yeah, I look at it like right now my campaign's just under 1K. And if you think about that, that's like books that I'm going to deliver in hand. And, who knows, by the end of my campaign, it could creep up to, who knows, 1,800 or 2K. But I'm an absolute unknown. So actually, that's fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Like, I am an absolute unknown. So if I can hit that, like a solid base hit, deliver to those customers, they tell their friends, that there's nothing like you. I mean, you have to build your own footprint. No one can build it for you. It's word of mouth is the realest thing that exists. So until you've delivered that one book, how does anyone even believe in you? Then once you've delivered that one book, okay, all right. Now people might want to believe in you. So I appreciate every backer who's getting me this far, because I am an absolute unknown, and so I just appreciate it. But I know my book is amazing, and I know that the readers are going to have a ball reading it. So,
Well,
and I
that's
appreciate
kind
the
of
artist
where
work.
I started. Was my whole thing when I did a project with a friend of mine. We tried to crowdfund a graphic novel, and it was going to be really expensive, and it was just too much out of the gate looking back. And so when
Yeah,
I kind of reoriented, and I said, well, I'm going to do one floppy and just start small. And
yeah,
then I
yeah,
got
yeah.
that funded. And then it's like, all right, well, I'm going to do an art book. And then that one got funded. And then the next one was Thunderpunch. And that one just like kind of blew up.
Hmm.
Um, so, and then, and even after that, I did like experimented with a second chance offer on Kickstarter to see if there was my audience from my art book was still over there, kind of were
Yeah,
so. And then I did another art book, and that did okay. And then now I'm back on. So they just learning how to um, even if you do a campaign that's not as successful as the other one, if it gets funded and you can make the product, then good. I mean, keep moving forward. So
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
that's kind of where I am now, and just and for me, writing now is just trying to get faster, fulfilling the projects and moving on to the next one.
Yeah, I've got
Brian, what do you? I'm sorry,
yeah. No, you go ahead, Jim.
Brian. What do you think is the hardest part of campaigning and crowdfunding? Do you
Um,
think it's like obviously the work is the work,
yeah,
but
yeah.
do you think it's the promoting over the fulfillment side?
I think it's the promoting, just because I was thinking about this today. I always feel like there's something that I should be doing that I'm not doing, but I don't know what it is.
Hmm.
And I hit Twitter hard because I'm on there, and Facebook is so. Facebook kind of sucks right now. Um, but and I'm doing the live stream, and I got my email list, and just balancing. Well, how often should I be talking about this? But and I'm trying to branch out into paying for ads, and that's been frustrating because like I took my trailer and I was like, I'm gonna try to do it for YouTube, put it before YouTube stuff. So I selected the channels that goes on and everything, and
Oh wow.
I said I'm just gonna do a little bit of money, like $150, and see what happens. And when I said it for like 3 or 4 days, and when it ended, it had not been shown one time. And I'm like, why? Because everything looked right,
Mhm.
but is it not enough money? Is it? I don't even. So it's one of those weird things where, like, hey, I would like to give you money, but it's not working. So, and then I did a Facebook ad, and then you get like one person goes to your campaign through it, and it's like, okay, so this doesn't work, or it's like,
Mhm.
is it the copy? Is it the image? And so yeah, that's kind of frustrating, but I find that social media is where I get most of my traction from, that and Twitter and YouTube,
Yeah.
really, and then my mailing list. So
Mhm.
again, and mostly it's just because I'm just tired, after you launch the campaign, and I'm just like, oh, I got to think about it all the time. Like that first week, like I was right up to because I kept in a month out. I was like, okay, March 26th or whatever, I'm going to launch this. I'm going to launch this. And I gave myself a deadline. So I had to get it done because I said it out loud.
Mhm.
And when like right up till the day I was getting everything together, I launched it that first week. I was like promoting it hard, and the numbers were going up. And then you kind of reach that little bit of lull. And then I sat back and I go, what was I doing before? Like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I know I got some commissions to do and I got some stuff to ship, but it's like, it's so disorienting. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild. My business plan sort of is that I have a few projects in the wings,
Mhm.
and I kind of picture myself eventually having maybe 4 different titles going, and each one can sell small numbers. Each one, if I'm working in the web, but then each one, when it delivers and the next one comes out, people have a chance to go buy the previous one, right?
Mhm.
And then if you roll that doing small numbers, but you are consistent and you do it for 2 or 3 years, then you have a back catalog. And when people find you, they're going to go, oh, look, there's a whole thing here,
Yeah.
So it's that kind of consistency and slow growth. There's no fast forward, there's no such thing. You
Yeah.
have to earn your keep, and you have to climb the hill yourself. If
Well, and
somebody
that stuff can turn
carries you up the
into,
hill, that
yeah.
that didn't really count.
Yeah. And that stuff turns into like other things. Like, so if Thunder Punch was less successful, or if it, drops off a little bit, finishing the project still gives me something I can do something else with later. It's still getting the concept out there, and
Yeah.
so there's definitely, it's worth doing smaller projects, or maybe the
Yes.
project doesn't go as great as you want it to, but the important thing is to get it done.
Yeah, I just look at it with Tales of Zero. It's a book that I've been working on for a year, and it's a it's something that I feel so good about. But like you said, when it's done, it's still in my back catalog. People can still discover it 2 years from now, and it's, oh, that thing is really cool. And I'm like, well, you should see what I'm working on now. So
Hmm.
you got to look at it as a it's not a one-time deal. You're building your own catalog. You're building your own track record. And if I was at a con, let's say I was at a small con, and 30 people like bought my book or whatever, I would be
Hmm.
psyched. You
Yeah.
kidding me? 30 sales. I'd be like, well, this was a great day. So
Yeah, I had way back when I had my first indie book at here one year. I think it was 2006. We sold 100 copies at one show, and then 200 copies at another. And at the time, I was like, "Wow, this is great." And looking back, that never happened again. Not even close. I was like, "What in the world was going on there?"
yep,
But normally, you're going to sell like if you go to a show, you might sell 10 maybe,
yep,
because people
yep.
just don't buy it. So if you can go online and get 100 backers or
That's
200
what I'm
backers,
saying. 100 backers is no joke.
yeah.
That's a real win, And for me, a first timer, 50 backers would be a huge
Hmm.
win, right?
Yeah.
For a first timer, you just have to have realism in what you're setting out to do. I
Yeah.
totally agree with you about the public negativity. If you're going to be publicly negative, like who's going to want to be around that energy,
Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. And I still see some of that stuff going on. And I just feel like, dude, make me excited about your project. That's job number one.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you can
That's
do that,
something I told, I was talking about earlier this week, because I'd heard somebody give a pitch recently on a channel, and they were talking about their book, but they're going into great detail about, oh, I wasn't sure if this was the right one, and blah, 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 the
mhm,
whole story. And I'm like, no, stop it. Like, do all that behind the scenes with your friends
yep,
and people. But
yep,
once you hit go on that, you better be Stan Lee. Like, I didn't
yep,
even use an eraser. It was the best thing ever.
yeah,
Because confident, because if you don't do that, what you're telling people is that it's not worth their time.
yep, yep,
If you don't believe, I mean, every time you look at your own stuff, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be things, oh, I could have done this. But once you get to the point where you think, okay, I think people will enjoy this, and I'm going to put it out there, then you have to sell it. And
yep,
that's what a
yep.
lot of artists don't do well.
hmm I know, even on this show, where like I should be like using this show to pump my own book. I'm always like so interested in other people's books, but that's the point. It's like I'm building up my own like relationships with all of you guys, because I mean I've been watching a lot of you guys for years, and I think you're all really cool people. But I'm not interested in like, hey, could I ride your coattails? Like it's not about
Yeah.
that. It's just like we're all in the same thing, trying to build our own dream, but no one can do it for you. You just gotta you gotta build it. So I just like think it's awesome that I get to chat with people, get to know people, and just you're building up those little relationships that could pay you back later. When I like Jim. I saw Jim's work, and I did some fan coloring of his work. And then when I'm on Twitter and I see somebody's like, oh, I need a cover artist, or I need this, I'm like, I just put at Jim on it, because I can tell sometimes when a project is going to fit his style. You know what I mean? And it's just like, oh, I know the guy. You need this guy. And if we were all doing that, we were all kind of looking out for each other, like helping the opportunity, connect the right creator with the right opportunity. There's just so much that can happen when you kind of treat people well.
Yeah.
And just kind of make this marketplace a fun place to be.
Yeah.
The customers will want to hang out here if we make it a fun place to be.
Yeah, and the thing too that I've kind of learned in all this, that even if you find somebody that has a huge following, and you kind of start talking to them, or you do things together, and even if they're a good person, the danger for the smaller person is just kind of getting sucked up into their brand, right?
Yep.
You're always going on to their channel, and you wanting to get tap into their followers or whatever.
Yep.
You won't do it. You'll get some of them. Some of them will become your fans, but I have found that most of them, if some of them that support you from that, aren't really supporting you, they're supporting their guy or girl
Yep.
And they're just coming onto you because you were kind of in that world, but
Precisely.
they're not really your fan. There's no substitute for building up your own fan base.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's what I picture myself doing for the next couple of years. Just again, it's like nobody can walk the road for you. Every step you take is you, you know. And like, yeah, so I'm excited though. But I do have a couple projects in the wings where I have different creative teams, you know, for different stories and different art styles. And so roll one out, roll the next one out, and just keep it each one small, but each one step by step. All right, well, now did I just get you?
I see two.
Yeah, I got kicked for some reason.
Oh, well, now you're.
One of these is an imposter.
Now, do you want me to kick one of you? I mean, you could. I didn't know if you wanted to share. I assumed, I guess, at first that you were going to share something you were drawing or something, but I can. It is kind of cool to have you. And so,
I kind of like this two of me. It's
I kind of like it too.
Evil Brian.
Yeah,
it's Garth on the other guy.
Yeah, it's like Michael Knight and Garth.
Oh yeah, I can shave one. Oh, there we go. Here,
oh my gosh!
I'll share my screen here.
Yeah, sure. So, are you drawing anything? I know it's a drawing show, but you know, there's no work on. But are you drawing anything right now?
So
yeah. So, what are you doing?
I will draw one that doesn't get a lot of love.
And who is that? I can't see what yet. Oh wait, hold on. It's coming. It's coming. Don't tell us. I'm about to make it happen. And Jim, you better be drawing it. Oh, it's it. Oh, I know. Don't tell me. Maximilian from the Black Hole.
The most shocking Disney death scene ever. You remember the death scene
when they go to hell?
No, that was the bizarre ending scene. When Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates, gets drilled to death.
Oh yeah, with the spinning hand,
with the spinning drill thing. Yeah, that kind of freaked me out as a kid because he drills through the notebook and then he's got that weird blah blah.
Yeah, I know.
Real.
Yeah, I know. They had a few. They had the Watcher in the Woods. They had a few that were just nightmare fuel back in that generation. Watcher in the Woods was scary.
Maximilian was a cool looking robot.
Oh, very cool. I know. Such a great design. Yeah, there were so many beautiful design elements in the Black Hole. The ship was amazing. The credits, the opening credits title sequence is just gorgeous.
The score is really good.
The score is really good. And, you know, a lot of great actors. I personally think that if Ernest Borgnine is in it, it's good. That's just one of those, like, he's sort of your lifeboat. If you just, whatever it is, put Ernest Borgnine in it, and you've already.
He's going to work. Okay, call.
Just get Borgnine in it, you know, because he. I mean, you know, he was so great in like what Escape from New York, as the cab driver, and just Airwolf. I mean,
Airwolf, yeah,
he was great in that. Yeah. Oh my God, he's great, and he was great. Oh, the Poseidon Adventure. I remember. He was the heel in the Poseidon Adventure. Instead of being like the plucky guy who keeps everyone's morale up, wasn't he the heel? He was the one who was like bringing everybody down.
Yeah, he was also kind of the heel in the Black Hole.
In the Black Hole, yeah.
He was going to leave him.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, I love Ernest Borgnine. He's great. And you know what a movie I also love is and this is, we're getting into those guilty pleasures or whatever. Is I love Escape from L.A.
I don't
Escape from LA.
Escape from LA.
Oh my gosh, it's so good because you really got to see. You like, I want you to try to picture this. You remember the X-Files, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So remember what the video effects looked like on the X-Files?
Mm-hmm.
Because it wasn't CGI, it was video.
Yeah.
Right? That's a whole different thing. So like Escape from New York was 1996. So just imagine the absolute height of video effects, but done on the large screen. So to the modern eye, they look pretty janky.
For sure.
But that's why they're so friggin' great. You look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is like the time and the place. Like you can't do these effects anymore. I don't even think the machines that do these effects even work. You know, it was like the height of a certain era.
Yeah.
And oh my God, they had so much fun. So I love it. There's a scene where Peter Fonda, you know, like from Easy Rider, he comes in, he's kind of playing a spoof of his character in Easy Rider. And he's like a surfer dude, a stoner surfer dude. And then he and Snake Plissken surf. And then they're chasing a 57 Chevy on their surfboards, like the cars on the road, and it is so absurd and stupid and great. It is like so bad that it's awesome. I actually just love B movies.
Yeah, well, I do too.
Oh my! Well, then you trust me when I tell you, Escape from L.A. is like, to most people, it's a garbage movie, and if you love B movies, it is a caviar. It is the caviar of B movies.
Yeah,
It is so good.
It's been a long time, especially with the last year or whatever. But I have a group of friends. We'll get together and we'll watch really bad movies. We used to rent them. Now they're all streaming.
Yeah.
But we'd watch some of the. I don't know how we would find these things. Some of them were almost painful, but
no, those are fun too. I love.
They're only fun with other people.
Yeah,
you can't watch them by yourself.
Yeah. But, I think the Ernest Borgnine part, the cab driver in Escape from L.A., it's Steve Buscemi.
Oh, okay.
Come on. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's that good. The casting is amazing. The visual effects are, I think they called it the video toaster. You remember that? The video toaster?
Yeah.
So it's like it's the height of video. Not CGI, not digital in the sense of modern digital. So like, oh, it's wonderful. The shark scene is just unbelievable. So Jim, are you drawing anything? Because I'm about to show my progress on this riding.
I am. I have no idea what it is or where it's from.
All right.
I'm
going to show.
Make it up as it goes on.
This is my riding now. I call my show "There Will Be Ink" because I always try to do something in ink on it. And I'm a writer first, a colorist second, and an artist just for fun. So if I can produce something that looks like pretty decent, I'm really happy. And so this is coming along. Usually what I'll do is I'll pencil sketch it, and then I'll just light box it with ink on the show. So that way I can remember to talk to my guests and remember to watch the chat and things like that. Because, if I try to draw the whole thing while I'm hosting a show, I'll, space out or something.
Yeah, it's tough. I've gotten fairly decent at it, but sometimes, if you're trying to work something out in drawing, it's hard to kind of zone out there for a second.
All right, so Jim, you're going to share your screen. We're going to check in with what you're doing.
Yeah, I think I did.
All right, let me see if I can find you. Oh, man. Is he giving us the finger?
Yes, he is. No. Oh, no, they're on me.
No, that's like a laser whip or something?
Yeah.
That's great. It kind of looks like Galvatron. Where did you reference this from something, or are you just going?
Looked up Gundam robot and picked the first thing, and now I'm just gonna mess around.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, the Gundam is another whole like world that has some great stuff in it. I'm no expert.
Yeah.
I like what I like, but Gundam has that tragic element that I think a lot of the great Japanese robot shows have, where it's like, I actually made a meme the other day. It was like the Rock meme where the girl says something, and it was like the Rock says, so who are the bad guys in Gundam? The Zeon or the Fetties, And then in my meme, the girl goes, "It's war, Dad. War is the enemy." And it's so true. Like, they did such a great job in Gundam of making, at first you think, oh, the Zeon are bad and the Federation is good. But as it plays out, maybe not. Maybe both sides are both good and bad. And what sucks is that kids are dying, It's really well done. I think Gundam is like, it doesn't get stale because of that. It's just never as simple as good guys and bad guys with Gundam. And plus everybody's robots look cool when they fight, and life is good. Yeah. Yeah, I was building the simple Gundam model kits with my son, and man, they're really, really fun. The fact that they don't require any glue, that's kind of it's kind of clutch, and they're just so highly engineered. So it's not like a snap tight model kits when we were growing up, where it's just like it kind of holds together. But these things are so engineered that even without glue, everything fits to like highly precisioned connections. And then the robots, when you're done, are superposable. So yeah, big ups to the people out there at Bandai making those. But Bandai, hire me. I'm promoting your shows. I'm promoting your toys.
Yeah. At least a sponsorship or something.
Yeah, sponsorship. Oh yeah, actually, I should tell you. Because I had Wyatt Holiday as a guest on. He's doing Eternal Armor, and so that's another giant robot one. And I have a giant robot comic that I'm hoping to bring maybe about a year from now, maybe next spring. That's an original one, and it's definitely inspired by a lot of the stuff I've been talking about, sort of the mix of tragedy and heroism. Mine is sort of like, and I have the artist, and we're, the script is done, and we're doing, layouts and character designs now, and just no hurry. It'll be done when it's done. But it's sort of a little bit like Power Pack. I don't know if you ever read Power Pack back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But both Gundam and Ideon, they had this thing where like children always get in the mix somehow,
Of course.
And so I wanted to do something like that, like Power Pack, where the brothers and sisters are thrown into this conflict and they bicker with each other, but then they have to go fight with the robots, and it's just like that kind of dynamic. I loved Power Pack when I was a kid. It's so well written. It makes some of the comics today, I don't mean to throw some shade, but reading a Power Pack comic from 1984 is like reading Shakespeare. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was made for 7 to 12-year-olds. And it is complex, and it's rich, and you need a vocabulary, and it's full of cultural references. So big ups to Louise Simonson and the whole creative team that did the original Power Pack. They were just so freaking talented. It's a great series.
Yeah, I didn't read it when I was a kid, but I have a friend who is super into Power Pack. That kind of was his thing. And whenever we would go to conventions, he was always on the lookout for Power Pack stuff and art and what the music created.
Yeah, my first X-Men comic that I ever really delved into was 205, which is now, it's to my mind one of the greatest works of art on the planet. But it's Barry Windsor Smith. It's called The Wounded Wolf, and it's basically Wolverine and Katie Power from Power Pack, and it has Lady Deathstrike and Spiral. It's one of the most beautifully illustrated things I've ever seen in my life, And so I always like Power Pack, kind of stemming off from the X-Men and New Mutants, because they would cross over all the time.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into Power Pack. And then I started reading those back issues back when I was a kid, and I was like, this is really, really good. And then I read it as an adult, and I'm doubly amazed at how good it is. I mean, the whole bullpen, the Marvel bullpen, circa 84, 86, 87, 88, so much talent.
Well, I mean, they really, there was an era, when they were marketing stuff kind of on two levels, one for kids, and then older readers could kind of enjoy it as well. And then I think one of the mistakes they made was going full bore, dark, gritty with everything.
Yep.
From a marketing standpoint, that seems like that was a bad idea.
Yeah, it is.
And it's funny when comics are your business.
Yeah, well, I my favorite titles when I was a obsessed comic reader at the age of 11, 12 years old, right before I picked up a guitar, with the New Mutants and the X-Men, and then everything that crossed over with that. So I remember when the Mark Silvestri's X-Men versus Avenger came out in 87. That was so good. Oh my God, that was an amazing series, So I read that, and I was reading it when the Mutant Massacre happened, That was the summer of 86, I believe. That one had Wolverine on the cover when it was just a headshot of Wolverine. I think that was August of 86, and that was like the kickoff of the Mutant Massacre. I saw this thing actually in one of the house ads from back in the day. I was looking at an old Marvel comic, and it was like, the Mutant Massacre. Have you got all the issues? And it showed like all the issues it took to like understand the plot of the Mutant Massacre.
Oh yeah,
it was like 9.
Yeah.
Where today it's like
well, and at least I did that because I quit reading Spider-Man. I loved Spider-Man. I read it every month until I can't remember what early 2000 big crossover event. I can't remember which one it was, but they had rewarded me as a faithful reader by suddenly one month I get the book. I'm reading. I'm like, I have no idea what the crap is going on. I'm so confused. And then it said, see, Captain America number. Oh, screw you, Marvel. It's like, I've read this title for so long. And now you're making me go get something else to understand my book. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought about the Mutant Massacre, which is one of the best crossovers ever. Like, it didn't take that much. Like, you could do it. You buy your title and a few more, and you're good. And it didn't last forever. It wasn't 100 crossovers. It was just like, I looked at the map of it and I was like, oh my God, I need this. I need to get every one of these. Like, I know I had most of them when I was a kid, and oh man, that's actually achievable. You know, it wasn't too much. So
that's good marketing, because it can't be too much. It has to be accessible, but if you're going to sell some issues, it's okay too. I don't have a problem with that. Just make it easy.
Yeah, exactly. Don't leave you. And then you're right, when you're a regular reader and then you're suddenly, completely in the dark. That's not good. Yeah. But yeah, those events with the New Mutants and Power Pack crossovers, those were really a lot of fun and amazing. Yeah, I actually, that X-Men 205 with Barry Windsor Smith and then the whole Sienkiewicz run on New Mutants are kind of my touchstone of inspiration. I go back to that all the time, and I can pick up one of those books and I'm inspired as soon as I put it down. I want to draw, like it's so good. And especially Sienkiewicz and the textures that he was able to get into. And I read all those. I had no idea that was like avant-garde. I just thought, I'm reading a comic. I'm 11 years old. I'm not thinking like, oh, what an avant-garde style. Yeah. To me, I was just like, this is rad. This is rad. This is cool. I had no idea that it was different. And now when I look at it, I'm like, wow, look, he drew Cannonball's head, but it's just a triangle. It doesn't even look like a person, and look, he didn't even bother to draw this. But yeah, I think Sienkiewicz is just such a mega talent. Such a total mega talent. There's this video of him at like the Pittsburgh Art Academy teaching like a little in-class lesson where he spends the entire lesson. He like takes some watercolors and draws this really janky off-kilter pickup truck. And he's like, this is the lesson. I drew this pickup truck. And then for an hour and a half, he just messes with the pickup truck. He dumps salt on it, sprays bleach on it. And everything he does is genius.
You're just I've never really known how he did that. Is he just like messing with dumping everything on his board?
I think he just had like in those days. I think he used photocopies. He used whiteout. He like scratched stuff out. It was just a full on affair. Some of it I look at it, I'm like, dude, I know you Xeroxed that.
Yeah.
I suspect, and I'd love to, like, if I ever had the chance to talk to him, it'd be fun to hear, but I suspect he took Polaroids, Xeroxed the Polaroids, Lightbox the Xerox of the Polaroids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which isn't that different than like Alex Ross, who, does this photorealistic style, but he's painting from photographs. So guess what, folks? It's photorealistic because he's painting from photographs,
Yeah.
So some of Sienkiewicz, I think he had a model, especially Ilyana. If you look at the way he did magic, she had this pug nose, her nose turned up, and, and that was the signature when Sienkiewicz draws her, she has that pug nose. And I'm like, that has to be a real person.
Yeah.
There was a real person.
All those older artists, from way back that would take Polaroids or photos of, they would like pose themselves or their friends or whatever.
Yep.
They were always using photo reference.
Yeah. So I think there was somebody who was his reference for Ilyana, and he was like, I need you to giggle. I need you to grab your chin and look up. And then I'm going to photocopy the Polaroid, lightbox the photocopy of the Polaroid, and then tape that onto the board, And it's so freaking good. So I try with Tales of Zero to have that, some pages where the textures are that thick and you're like, dude, what? And I also try to do some stuff where I pull scratches and imperfections right across the page, just make it look sort of aged and like it's been through something. Yeah, another book I've been looking at recently is this old, it's The Unknown Soldier, sort of a Sergeant Rock spinoff. And oh my God, it's amazing. The Kubert sort of style, and then just the way the textures and colors are done. I guess I just grew up in that area where you could look at the picture of Wolverine and you could see it's just made of dots.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas like today, I feel like when people, I wonder how many comic readers really know what it looked like, because it doesn't look like that in the trades.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? in the trades, it looks like a refrigerator magnet. It's just a block of blue, a block of pink, a block of yellow. But in the real comic, orange was made of pinks and yellows, and and they overlapped, and they didn't always line up, and they did all these crazy things. And to me, that was
too close to your TV, and you can see the RGB.
Exactly. But to me, as a kid, I got lost in all those textures. I wanted to see like how everything didn't line up. Was like the Viewmaster, like because it doesn't line up, your eyes try to make it line up, and that's how it gains depth. So when I see like stuff that's everything's rendered perfectly, the background is fully colored, I'm just like, okay, that's fine, but it feels flat to me. Mm-hmm. And then people look at the colors I like and call them flat. And I'm like, no. You saw the trade. You didn't see the real color. The real color wasn't flat. The trade was flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a soapbox that I'll get on all the time. We have so interesting to hear these methods for drawing. We'll learn how to draw. It makes you think. Thank you, Writer's Quill. I appreciate that you're in our audience today. You know what, Writer's Quill? You're going to get an amazing reward for your insightful comment. We're going to watch the Gunship Thunderpunch trailer. Oh, let's do it. And there it does. Warning: this contains an arcade reference. Warning. Okay, we should have it coming up about now.
Gunship Thunderpunch is back. This second graphic novel in the series picks up where the adventure began in the first 80-page book. And if you missed book 1, don't worry. You can get on board with books 1 and 2 in this Indiegogo campaign. Martians kidnapped her son, and Nova Marcos has one chance to get him back. Her only hope lies with an outdated transforming gunship, a convict, and a gun-toting hillbilly. More mutants, more Martians, more ships, more sci-fi robot adventure. During this campaign, you can get exclusive extras like prints, trading cards, and original art. Time is limited, so get in now. But hang on, there's more. This book comes with an original synthwave album. Immerse yourself in the adventure with an original soundtrack inspired by Gunship Thunderpunch. Get your quarters ready to go. That's an arcade reference. And press start on Gunship Thunderpunch.
Oh my gosh, that is a great trailer.
If only I could get YouTube to play it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right, let me see. I think I might play my trailer too since we're doing this. Oh, that is so good. And is that your voice, Brian? You did your own voice over there?
Yeah.
Or did you? Yeah, it sounds great. Well, actually, now that I realize you had this great bass and boomy microphone, that makes sense. No wonder you got that tone. Yeah, let's see. So yeah, let me play my trailer, and then I think you'll see some of the textures that I'm trying to go for, where you can see the dots, where you can see that different planes don't line up, and how that works. Let me get it going here. I made a meme on my channel, or a little joke the other day, where it was like, people when they look at Tales of Zero, hey, that looks like drawings. Yeah, baby. Yeah, it's drawings, like that's it, because I just feel that sometimes the art style of the last 15 years, it's like we have to make it look like no human touched this.
Yeah, right.
Where I'm like, dude, I want to see the brush strokes. I want to see the line break. I want to see when you lifted the pen, it left a little.
Yeah.
That's even
where I am. I'm the whole very slick kind of style. I've the older I get, the more I gravitate towards very loose and gestural.
Yeah.
I want to see all those marks make up something.
Exactly. Even Liefeld and McFarlane. Do you remember how they would do? They would lift the pen, and you get that little whoop right at the end. They had names for all those. They had names for the little extra mark that you leave at the end of the stroke and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, So all right, here, let's watch my trailer. Please enjoy. in a world. Oh, anyway, yeah. So I mean, in a world where juice is very expensive, one construction worker will convince a naive data programmer to follow him into the jungle in search of an alien artifact for juice money. Yeah, that's sort of the setup of my story, is that these old construction workers, they got addicted to this stimulant called the juice when they were building this mining colony. But then once the corporation was done with them, they were like, all right, see ya. So now there's no work for these guys, but they still need this juice. And so my two characters, they find this data programmer who's young, who's never been outside the colony, who wants to have an adventure. And then they're like, oh, well, there's this treasure. You should, we go with it. You'll have your adventure. We'll get our juice money. And that's what sort of sets them off on their quest, Yeah. And so it's based on the author Clark Ashton Smith. He had a story called Satampra Zeros, The Tale of Satampra Zeros. So I took the story beats of his, and then I kind of turned it into a diesel punk sort of tribute to him. And so, yeah, it's really in the style of the old 70s horror comics, and a little bit of anime mixed with Sienkiewicz kind of texture. Hey, Sugar Chris, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. And let's see. Oh yeah, there was something else I was going to say since we're talking underappreciated robots. How about this? I'm gonna put a theorem on the table. You ready?
Okay.
Part of the reason the G.I. Joe comics, part of the reason the G.I. Joe cartoon and the Transformers cartoon were so good is that Marvel Comics writers were writing them.
I would say that is probably true.
Isn't that interesting? Like, you think about who was in the bullpen at Marvel in 83, 84, 85. And you think of some of the storylines, some Transformers cartoon storylines, I never forgot them. From the first, and then G.I. Joe, the same thing. Like the one when they met the Egyptian gods.
Oh yeah.
I never forgot that. The one where they went to the Destro's family, and there was that pit monster, that Lovecraftian monster that all of Destro's family like worships.
Yeah.
What? Right? I never forgot that. And then here's one. This is a Transformers episode. I'm going to play you a clip. You ready? Here's a Transformers episode I never forgot. I don't even know if I ever saw it twice, but I never forgot it. And I thought of it when we were talking about underappreciated episodes, because the Nightbird, I mean, I only needed to see that once before I was blown away by it, right? And then how about this one? Remember this one?
Oh yeah, Autobot Spike.
Remember Autobot X?
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about this a lot as both a kid and as even as an adult. My thoughts went back to this episode a lot of times because there's a lot of themes. I had the place I wanted it and I just lost it. Where was it? Oh yeah, here we go, right here. Listen to this.
What's happening to me? Give us something. But we did the only thing we could do to save you. We'll only be in that robot body till the doctors at the hospital fix up your real one.
Yeah, guess you did what you could, but it's hard to think. Like something's telling me to do bad things.
Must be a side effect of the mind transfer.
Sorry about that outburst, Dad.
Like spark plug. Some of the other Autobots and I are needed back at the rocket base. We've got to help repair the damage done during our battle with the Decepticons. Meanwhile, Spike, every comfort will be provided to you here.
Spoiler alert, Optimus, don't leave. Don't go to the rocket base. But you remember that? They put Spike's consciousness in this junk body that they just assembled from a bunch of stuff. Oh my God. I mean, that stayed with me.
And he just turned out to be super powerful. It's
yep. But he had all this
another robot.
Yeah, he had all this angst, It was like a metaphor for puberty, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden he had this body he didn't understand. He had all these emotions he didn't understand. He destroyed everything. Gee, Dad, I don't know why I'm destroying everything. It's there's a lot in there that those Marvel Comics writers were tapping into. And then don't get me started on the G.I. Joe where Shipwreck and the Synthoids.
Oh, that one scarred me. When Roadblock is melting.
Life when they melted, and that was the cliffhanger. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was everything was weird, but it wasn't that weird. And then in the last 30 seconds, everyone melts.
Yeah.
And then it's like he's like, what's happening? To be continued.
Yeah.
Oh
I can Roadblock's eyeball falling out as he melted. Did it? It was like, what?
Yeah. I mean, that was some broadcast television that I'll never forget, right? Goodness gracious. No, I don't think so.
An eyeball falling. I'm surprised they did it then.
Me too. I just think people must have said, "Oh, it's a kids show, whatever." Yeah. Don't think about it. But yeah, so that was great.
They did also show the Aphrodite A boob rocket.
Yeah, the boob rocket. Yeah, that got by the censors apparently. I know, that was classic stuff. I mean, all of us in the playground were like, "Boob rocket," you know. It was awesome. The Aphrodite A boob rocket. That was one for the books. And then, well, there's also, in Star Blazers, there's the IQ-9, the robot. He's in love with.
He was a perv in the.
He was a perv,
version, yeah.
Yeah, and he was in love with Nova, and like he would grab her behind and stuff.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. And you can definitely see some of that. But again, to the kind of heartbreak mixed with humor, there was that episode of Star Blazers where they went to the planet of the bees.
Yeah.
And like IQ-9 professed his love for Nova. That was actually so touching because she actually ended up being the jerk. He was like, "Nova, I love you." And then she says, "What do you know? You're just a machine. You don't. You don't." Yeah. And then like 20 minutes later, he's like, "Nova, how dare you say that? Do I not feel? Am I?" And all of a sudden, like you and the audience are like, "Oh my God, IQ-9."
Yeah, it makes you feel bad for the American version, but in the Japanese version, where he's been accosting her the entire time, he's like, "I don't care.
I don't care." He's like, "Stop touching me." But yeah, in the American version, I was like, "Oh my God, this is kind of touching." Like, she really dissed on him, and it wasn't called for. But then in the end, he's like, "I will always love you, Nova, but I understand. I am a robot." Yeah, that was kind of touching, actually. Hey, so Apex Comic is in the chat. Yeah, I'm sorry, Hyper Potato. I'm sorry. We can't all be lucky like Max Sterling in Robotech, where like the enemy fighter pilot falls in love with you and tries to kill you, and then like a week later you get married. That's the best. You remember that? I also will never forget that. I think I was 10 years old when Robotech was on. Do you remember that, Brian?
No, I didn't. Because I didn't really. For some reason, I never really got into Robotech, and I've only recently, kind of because it's on Tubi now, started going back and watching it, and I haven't made it all the way through. But it just didn't. Maybe it was on, because we had 4 channels. And it might have been on opposed to something else that I wanted to watch. Yeah,
where I grew up, it was on Saturdays, and it was a 1-hour block, like 10 a.m. So you got to see 2 episodes, and then you had to wait a week. So once you got hooked, you were hooked, though, because it was such a soap opera. So my God, that day I was like, "Everyone, shut up! Robotech is on. I must know what happened to Rick and Min-May." It was such a great soap opera. But Max and Miria were actually, in some ways, the best characters. Max was the fighter pilot with the blue hair, and he was like the nicest guy, but he also like blew up all the bad guys. And then Miria was the fighter pilot for the enemy, and she had green hair. And then when they finally met, spoilers if you're watching it right now, she tried to kill him. And then they fall in love and they get married. And it's actually awesome. It's actually just an amazing storyline, and then the fact that they fall in love and get married, it like sends this signal that these 2 species don't have to hate, It sort of like becomes symbolic of this war isn't good for anyone. And it's awesome. I loved it. That definitely was one of those moments where I think I was 10 years old. And when that happened, definitely something in my body and mind went like, whoa, like you're feeling things that you're just like are a little deeper than what you're ready for watching a kid's show,
Yep.
So that one is another unforgettable moment. So, all right, let's get into the story of Gunship Thunderpunch. So you invented the whole mythos, the whole universe, the whole, where did these robots come from? And so tell me, is your giant robot is a sentient, aware? Because you have, you have piloted mecha, you have robots that are aware. So tell us about your main characters.
So it's a sentient robot, and the basic premise is that we discovered life on Mars. That life did not like us, and we immediately went to war. And so during a few decades after that, Mars kind of reappears and kidnaps basically a shuttle full of people. And Nova Marcos she's the main female character, has a son on that ship, and he's kidnapped. So Earth won't do anything. The government won't do anything. They think they can't. So her only chance is to bust out one of her patients, who is she's a physician.
Okay.
At this military kind of facility, she goes around and checks on the patients and stuff. And one of them is the old commander of this gunship, who has a life sentence for desertion. And she busts him out, and he has hidden the gunship in a junk pile, and it's been there for 30 years. And she doesn't realize that it's alive. So they get the ship and get a little extra help, and they're off into space, and they have to go try to find her son in the middle of becoming fugitives, and the ship not being in the best of condition. So that's kind of where things get started and go wrong.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's the fun part, right?
Yeah.
When things go wrong, that's always the best part. And what other things have you written? This is your first time writing like a story from top to bottom, or you've written other things? Or
no, I also have another book called William the Last that I had. It's still on Webtoon, and I'm not done with it. I've got 2 issues left. It's being published by Antarctic Press, but I've been doing that that William the Last was kind of my first. I wanted to do a project where I wrote and drew and did everything, and that one is doing, even though it's kind of on hiatus, pretty well. And Antarctic picked it up, and it's got about I think it's right at around 20,000 subs on Webtoon, and
that's great. It's
doing good. It's just honestly going the traditional route through. Well, you're not going to make any money on Webtoon.
No.
You're not going to make much money through a traditional publisher with Diamond and everything. So it's a business decision that I've had to kind of put that on hold for a few months while I get Thunderpunch up and going. So, but yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah. Well, I like the idea a lot that she's not aware that the robot's going to be alive, and that gives you a lot to play with in the future. The robot can have history and memories that come to bear. In future episodes. So yeah, that sounds really, really fun. What do they call the robot? What's the robot's proper name when they speak to the robot?
It's Thunderpunch.
And they call Thunderpunch.
That was the designation of the.
I see.
So there's some history that in this first 3 kind of 3 issue or 3 graphic novel issue book origin story you won't get to. So in future, I've got some things planned out for the future. If the people still want the book, we're going to explore a little bit more. But my initial goal for telling the story was just, here's what you need to know. Let's go on this adventure. And I didn't want to start. I don't want to start out. Here's a bunch of exposition and
exactly.
Like, no, just hop in and go to town. Over time, slowly learn. More and more. Those are the kind of stories I enjoy. So that's just the way I wanted to tell it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's really cool. And then your synth pop, or your synth wave record, are you're the musician on that as well?
Yeah, I'm co-producing it with a friend of mine who is a musician as well, and obviously, and so it was an excuse to do a music project, but it just kind of fit with the book. So I was like,
definitely
put things together and just do this whole kind of retro 80s experience, and so yeah, we're working on that, and hopefully here in the next week we're going to do on some live streams on my channel. He's going to come on. His name is Jason Windsor, and we're going to go over, maybe work on some stuff live, and just going to get a little sneak peek behind the process and some more previews. There's a few snippets on the Indiegogo campaign that I've uploaded. So.
And you guys, you're working at a distance? Or are you in 2 different cities, or you get to work in person?
We live in the same city, but we're really just doing it over, So I've got my little setup here, and I'll do stuff, and we'll all upload it to a server, and then he'll take it, and so we're just we don't really need to be in the same place. So
yeah, definitely. And are you using software, or hardware? What kind of synthesizers?
It's all software. I mean, it's all
software,
like plugins and stuff like that. And there's some guitar stuff that's actual guitar, but it's these days like it's it's all digital.
Oh no, I mean some of the plugins are so good.
Oh yeah.
But I actually have a small problem that I'm in love with synthesizers as well. So it's an '80s child problem.
Yeah.
So
it's like it's comfort food.
It is. Oh my gosh, and each one has such a voice and such a melancholy. The Juno family. Just you play the major chord on the Juno 106 or whatever, and it sounds sad.
Yeah,
It just has that lonesome sort of like Cyndi Lauper, True Colors, melancholy. You just hold one chord on it, and it's like I'm happy,
maybe,
maybe. And you think of like how that infused so many '80s, bedroom
and once you
songs
start, writing things and trying to put together your own stuff, you start listening a little bit more, and you're like, oh, I know what that is. Oh, I see what they're doing. Oh.
Yeah, I went through my whole love affair with each drum machine, and then you realize like which records which drum machine is on, and it's like so eye opening how much character just a drum machine gives to an entire song.
Yeah,
and and again, it's like it's so weird how our childhoods were shaped by Japan.
Oh yeah.
Because all that technology came out of Japan, and it infused what was on the radio, and infused what was on our TVs with robot shows and the TR-808 and the Juno 106, and it's just amazing, amazing time to be a kid.
Yep.
And then it's funny how anime is having this time now where anime is going through this sort of like it's now like a kind of a personality. Being into anime can be your personality now. And that's weird. There's a video on YouTube you can watch. It was the anime show. It was called Pat Labor. I never saw it when I was a kid, but it came out in the 90s, and it's very good. It's really, really good. So I watched some of the old episodes. But, the people that were bringing those anime shows to the States on VHS, back in the 80s, and the kids who were buying them in the stores and creating the demand.
Yeah.
I gotta say this. Those kids weren't popular.
Yeah.
Those kids were nerds. What I mean? Those kids were friggin' nerds.
Yeah.
This didn't make them
in crowd are the nerds.
Yeah.
It's so weird, because they just don't realize like back in the day, you didn't talk about this stuff in the open.
Yeah. It wasn't the thing you did to have a personality. It was like what you did.
Thing you did to have no friends.
To have no friends. Oh, you guys, I have a little kid, and she is calling me right now. Do you guys want to chit chat a little bit, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes. We'll wrap this up. All right, carry on, gentlemen. Carry on.
How's the campaign doing, Brian?
It's doing okay. It's kind of it's on that slow uphill grind. I just checked it. I was comparing it to you can go in the backer kit and compare like the trends and stuff, and I was like, is this doing the same as the one before book one? And it kind of is. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten that book one was kind of that was a grind as well in the middle. So it's all right. It's going good. I wish I could see the piece you're working on. I have no control. I'm not used to having no control in StreamYard. I can't do anything.
You don't want to see this.
I do.
I'm just making it up as I go along.
Well, that's my entire life.
Your favorite and worst Transformers to draw?
My favorite,
your favorite
worst one
and worst. Yeah.
See the worst one.
The least favorite.
Any Michael Bay version. I mean that's a nightmare. But as far as like G1, I don't know if I have like a least favorite G1 though. That's a good question. Like maybe because like some of the combined, like some of them that were kind of on the cusp of me like fading out of watching it. Oh, maybe like Computron or something.
Right.
Just because I don't know I have to look up reference constantly, and that's a pain.
I couldn't imagine. Like tech to me is like you got to. I don't know how you like keep all the parts and everything in your head. I mean, it must break down the shapes ultimately. But.
Well, yeah, I mean it's all shapes, and then a lot of those details I'm just kind of faking it, honestly. Like here's a techie thing. I'm gonna put this little line here. That makes it look like something.
It's a wire. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wires, and here's a panel, and this is another panel. So yeah, I mean, if I was working on the Transformers book, like with Thunderpunch, I try to keep it fairly consistent. Pretty simple, but I would have to be more diligent with it if I was actually on a monthly book.
Right.
All right, you guys. I might actually wind up my show a little bit early. I usually like to go right to 1 o'clock, but I think my kiddo might need me. So thank you guys
how that is.
for being my guest, and this was awesome. Let's kind of tag each other on social media and share what we drew. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Bye, you guys.
All right. Bye.
Take care.
Have a good night.